Hello viewer, welcome to the Tai Show. Today we are going to talk about quality education for every child. Welcome. Today let us unpack the Tai Show, where the Tai means technology, innovation and education. So we want to put them together, tie them together and unpack them, see how they relate, how do they contribute to the development of the world and of the country Kenya. So today in studio I have a guest. His name is Brian Bosire. He's the recruiting manager for Teach for Kenya. You'll know what that is in a minute. I'll be your host, Davian Kwamboka. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. We want to talk about quality education, and this is a field that you have experience in, being a recruiting manager for Teach for Kenya, where they are recruiting teachers. He's like a HR, so you are like the epitome of everything when it comes to quality education. So just to start us off, what is your background in education?
Okay, so my name is Brian Bosire, you have heard. I don't have a background in education. I actually trained as a nurse. But growing up, I have always wanted to be a driver of change. I'll just give a brief story to just highlight why that is.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a very young kid, I used to have like a senior cousin. So when I was young, he used to take me for a ride. He was a driver,
yeah,
with one of the matatus en route from Dandora to City Stadium.
Okay.
So every time he used to take me to City Stadium, he used to buy me chips. So in my mind, I used to know like drivers are rich people. So and I used to say, when I grow up, I want to be a driver. Now, it's almost 20 years down the line and I still don't have a driving license yet. But one thing that I'm passionate about is becoming a driver for change. And that is the one thing that has brought me even to work with organization Teach for Kenya. Because I believe in young people, there lies the future. And education is the tool through which we can empower them to unlock, to unlock their potential. Education is the tool through which, if we empower them with quality education, then the young children will be able to solve the problems that we face as a society. And that is one of the reasons why I'm passionate about education.
Okay. So how many years has it been in Teach for Kenya?
It's almost been around 8 months.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. People begin from different points. We all have a story. So what exactly is education? When we talk about education, are we talking about going to school and sitting in a class and learning? Are we talking about sitting in front of my computer on the University of YouTube? When we talk about learning and education, what exactly do we mean?
So from my understanding, when it comes to education, now education is the system, like for example, that is set up for children to go to school so that they can learn things like literacy, they can learn things like numeracy skills, they can learn things like science skills and so on and so forth. But when it comes to learning is the thing that does happen even beyond the corridors of school, even beyond the perimeter of the school. Learning is something that happens, and you'll come to realize that learning, even now as a background from nursing, you realize that even young children start learning even as they are from the womb. Even from the womb, like when they are around 34 to 38 weeks, they are able to learn and differentiate. Now, this is my mother's voice. And with time, as they grow up, they learn how to respond to pain. And learning now, education is now the system through which people go through so that they can improve on their literacy and their numeracy and science skills and whatnot. But when it comes to learning, this is learning that can happen in school and outside schools. And learning now, it can be, through virtual session, it can be through experience. So learning is a thing that goes beyond the borders of a classroom.
So we can say learning can be in two ways. It can be formal or informal, where you have a specific system, or you can have it, just learning whatever you come across or the environment that you're in.
Sure.
The UN came up with what they are calling the Sustainable Development Goals. And goal number 4 is quality education. So when we talk about quality education, what exactly are we talking about?
Thank you so much for asking me that question. It's good that we put the word quality and education together, just to say that education in itself is not sufficient if it is not quality. And I think if you study more about the Sustainable Development Goal number 4 that were produced, the Millennium Developmental Goals, in the year 2000, and goal number 4, where it advocates much for equity and enabling every child, regardless of their race, their background, you know, their gender, to get access to quality education. Then it means that quality education is an education that, one, it's an education that is safe. Two, it's an education that will be able to empower the child to be able to, you know, solve societal problems. It's not just about passing tests. It's an education that through which, if a child undergoes a quality education, some of the things that the child should be able to do, one is that the child should be able to realize and unlock their full potential. They should be able to develop skills like critical thinking. They should be able to solve societal changes, in that if a society, like for example, let's say we are in Kenya, and one of the challenges maybe perhaps we are facing in Kenya is corruption, for example. So beyond going, if a child has undergone a quality education, then the child should be able to learn and critically think in terms of how can I solve the immediate problems that are facing my society, beyond just scoring an A, or, you know, getting a good grade in class.
Okay, so must be safe and should be able to enable someone to be.
At least 3 things need to be there. At least the quality education should, one, empower the child to be able to learn at the very least, you know, pedagogy skills, and the child should be able to develop in character, and the environment for quality education should be a very safe environment. Where the child enjoys the learning process.
Great. Oh, that's a big issue in Kenya. When we talk about education, the first thing that comes to our parents' minds, to even, you know, previous generations, upcoming generations, people are just talking about grades. What did you get? Which high school did you go to? And we've attributed everything to grades. So that's why we are saying that quality education in itself need to be wholesome. Netherlands has actually been named to be one of the countries that has continually had quality education because of, you know, the different environments that they expose the children to. You go to class, when it's time for lunch, you go out and actually make the snacks for yourself. When it's time to go home, you're engaging in different activities. So you grow wholesomely as a character. So tell us about Teach for Kenya. Why the name Teach for Kenya to start from? Okay,
that's a very good question. So actually, when you look at our logo has a pencil symbol.
I've seen them.
The reason why we call ourselves Teach for Kenya, it's because we want to, you know, empower every Kenyan child to realize their true potential. And we believe that education, as Nelson Mandela once said, is the only tool that if you empower a child with education, it's the only tool that we can use to change the world. So if a child is empowered not only to just become a doctor, but in any field, then we believe that they can be able to, you know, change the world, create solutions instead of complaining of the problems that we face. And the reason why we have Teach for Kenya, the Teach for Kenya movement, is we are looking in terms of how we can be able to solve education inequity in the country. And how we are looking to achieve this is we realize that we are not able to solve this alone, that the cake is too big, that we in our own selves, we cannot come up with one solution that can be able to solve the education inequity in Kenya. But our model of system of how we work is we recruit recent graduates from diverse fields. So just to correct you, we don't just recruit teachers. We recruit different graduates from diverse fields. Like in our first cohorts, we had recruited lawyers, we had recruited people who have done biochemistry. Within us, we have people who have done social work, people who are passionate about education. And the reason why we recruit them is because on the short term, we want to bring them to the classroom. Because how we work is we recruit those recent graduates for a 2-year paid fellowship program. During this 2-year paid fellowship program, we place them in the classrooms of low-income schools, and our focus currently is in Mukuru, Kwanjenga, where the children get to interact with these students. So the first thing is we bring these creative minds to the classroom so that the children, especially in low-income communities, can get to see that their dreams are valid, you know, because children's scope is limited to the person they see. So we hope by bringing these young, brilliant minds into the classroom, then they will be able to spark creativity and critical thinking in these children. So we recruit them for a period of 2 years. And after 2 years, we believe that these young graduates will have understood the challenges facing the education system from the grassroots levels. After the 2 years, we hope now they will be able to rise to various spheres of influence in the society. Perhaps if you have recruited an engineer, they will have understood the importance of having of having proper classroom structure. Like we had a candidate who is, one of our fellows is a lady who did real estate from the University of Nairobi. After visiting the community, she saw the need for us to have proper classrooms, you know, proper lighting, the things that make education worthy.
Yeah.
And so the reason why we recruit them is because after 2 years, we hope that they will have understood the challenges facing the education system. That way they'll be able to rise to other spheres of influence where they'll be able to become policy makers. They'll be able to advocate for the quality education that we want. Not everyone might be able to transition into education, but because after going through the 2 years now, the challenge that we give them is after understanding the grassroots levels that cause inequality in education, what solution can we bring to the society? And that is the reason why we recruit recent graduates. So for the short term, we place them in the classroom. In the long term, we hope to work with those young leaders as change makers to bring solutions that can help us fight education inequality.
Okay.
Yes.
So we want to take a short break. Teach for Kenya is doing an amazing job, and we want to come back and understand how he's a recruiting manager. I mean, what does he consider when he's choosing a candidate to be part of the cohort that is going to work for Teach for Kenya? And we want to talk about inequality, because we cannot separate, we cannot talk about quality education and not talk about inequality. It's a reality in Kenya. We have different stratifications of schools. So we want to understand what can we do so that all these schools are at par, so that every child, remember we are talking about quality education for every child. You know, they're only working in Mkuru kwa Njenga, there is Majengo, there are people living in Kisumu, we have students all over. So we want to see how do we bridge that gap all over the country. How do you as a person, you as a viewer going to contribute to this topic? And if you have any comments, leave them on the comment section. We'd like to see your thoughts. What is it that you think can be done to improve the quality of education and ensure equity of education throughout the country? We'll be back in a minute. Don't go anywhere.
Are you a lecturer? Are you a tutor? Are you an instructor? Do you wish to make learning efficient and effective? You can now reach out to your learners online using technology. Introducing Bafunde. Bafunde supports trainers and educators in organizations, universities and colleges to prepare and deliver digital content to boost interactions and learning. Visit our website at bafunde.com and register now. Bafunde, enhancing learning.
Hello viewer, welcome back to the Tai Show. We are talking about quality education for every child. Wherever they are, name them, name the place. We are talking about their quality education. Just to pose a question, if you think about the system of education that you went through, do you feel like you received quality education? Can you say that if you're taken back, there is nothing you'd change? If you're given an opportunity, maybe as an adult or even as a learner, to choose the places that you want to learn in, supposing you want to change anything, is there anything you'd like to see? We'd like to hear those thoughts. Write them in the comment section. If you're on Facebook, we also want to see your comments on the comment section. We want to see what are your thoughts on quality education. So before we left for break, we mentioned something about inequality. You're working in Mukuru kwa Njenga. It's almost a slum, or is it a slum?
Yeah,
so
it's a slum.
Why did you choose that place?
All right. The reason why we chose that place is because, one, if you look at the UNICEF report released around 2015, it showed that children undergoing the Kenyan education system are not able to lose up to 2.9 years of learning. And they're only able to unlock up to 52% of their potential. So you find a child has gone through the education system, you know, the 844, but you know, even after going through the education system, they are still not self-aware. They're still not able to understand what is it that I'm capable of doing. And even now, talking about tying it with the inequality, according to the UNICEF report, one of the things that it said is that, you know, the inequality gap is, you know, when you compare the people who are, let's say, they are doing well, the rich people and the people who come from maybe low income societies. The likelihood of children completing schools from low income society is very low. Actually, they say out of, it's like a ratio of 4 to 1. Like in a rich family, people who are well off, you realize that they're likely to complete school. But in a low income society, up to four children in a ratio of 1, for every 4 children, like there's like 1 kid who is not, for every four rich children, there's like 1 kid. So that is the ratio. 4 can be able to complete, while one child is not able to complete. So, and that is the other thing. And then the exposure, like one of the things that you can be able to tell even during this pandemic that has been able to even support our reason for why we chose Mukuru kwa Njenga, you realize that during COVID, there are people who are able to undergo online classes from like good families, isn't it? True. But when you realize that even as we are doing our study and our research in areas like Mukuru kwa Njenga, one of the things that stood out for us is even in some families, they were not able to have a smart device, leave alone a smartphone. They are not able to access, you know, online services. And yet you expect these children to sit for the same exam, to sit at the same time and be able to compete effectively. So that is one of the reasons why we chose low income society, so that we can be able to bridge this gap that is vividly seen.
So wow, it's clear. We even have types of schools, I'd like to call them. We have public schools, we have private schools, and we have, you know, I can even say it's like a VVIP private school. And these different type of schools, people are paying different amounts of money. So you'll find that depending on where you come from or how able your parents are, that's when that determines which school you'll go to. So let's talk about public schools. Does the size of the class and location of where you school, does it contribute to the quality of education that you receive?
So yes and no. Yes and no, in the sense that how our minds are crafted now from a scientific point of view, you know, they say by beholding we become changed. You know, what you see is what you become. So like I can like to use this example. I think around April before, or around March before COVID hit us, I got an opportunity to visit one of the schools that we will be visiting, that we will be sending our fellows to. And one of the questions that we asked the students was, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you know, and people were excited. Like there was one guy who wanted to say, you know, of course there were the common choruses, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a pilot. But then there were also answers like, I want to be a saloonist. The others who said, I wanted to be a police officer. The others who said, you know, I want to be even a watchman. And so this brought to view, even as I was looking into that, to see and realize that we are only defined by the horizons that we have. Sometimes when we grow up, the people that we see will influence the decisions that we are able to do, or the decisions that we are able to make. So even from a public schools with no exposure, that limits the type of things, even the creativity that they will have, for example. Like you realize, like for example, we also learned in a public school, and we only had 1 trip. And one trip we were taken to Wilson. So I'm trying to imagine someone land in some school up country, even the types of trips they go to, you know, the exposure they get, because it's the exposure that you get that will determine what is it that you want to be. It will determine the type of dreams that you have. And so I want to say, yes, if you're in a public school, there's a possibility that you will be limited by the exposure that you get. But then you have always seen also people who define the odds, who come from very needy schools. Like one of the people I can highlight is the head of Shofco, Ken Odede. He grew up in Kibera slums, but then he was able to define the odds, and now he's leading a very big organization that actually, to the result, has been able to define the odds and being able to help a lot of people from the slums. So it does not really mean that because you come from a low income society that your dreams should be limited to that. You can still define the odds and still stand out as a person.
And still on that thought, every one of you has a responsibility of exposing these learners to different types of things. If you're a teacher, for example, and you're working in a good school, you may want to take a learner who wants to be a teacher to this school so that they see how the environment is, how things work. If you're an accountant and you know a child who wants to be an accountant, maybe they're really even not interested. Take them, expose them to your place of work. We have a responsibility, each one of us, to contribute to quality of education. Let's expand the minds of the learners. So I'm a teacher by profession, and I remember the first time I went teaching after my first year. My passion was in journalism, but I got a job of going to teach. They call people UT, untrained teacher. You're not yet graduated. So I went to teach in a certain public school, and there was a motto, or I can say there's something that teachers used to say there. Used to say, teach and go home. TGH. Like, as long as you're receiving your salary, just go to class, teach, give quizzes, mark books, and go home. Any other responsibility, don't stress yourself, because there is no allowance for it. So let's talk about teachers, the role of teachers in quality education. And I'm looking at it from this point of view. There are teachers, even if the systems we've gone through, there's a teacher you remember and you feel like they contributed a big chunk to the person you have become today. They influenced your thoughts, they influenced your character, they molded you. So what position should teachers take, no matter where the school they are teaching in ensuring that education is of quality to the learners? Yeah,
that's really a very pregnant point, and in the sense that really teachers contribute really to the life of a child. You know, teachers spend, actually before COVID, teachers used to spend, you know, most of the times with the kids. You know, like children report from 8 to 4, and the impact that the teacher has on the child, it's very great. There are teachers, depending on how they influence. So if a teacher has, you know, motivated, because the children look up to the teacher. So if the teacher is motivated, the teacher will be able to give his best in the society. And so what is the role of really teachers in imparting the quality education? I can say they play the biggest role, because they are the person who are really on the ground, you know. As like, for example, me from the recruitment, and you know, I'll only facilitate the process, but they're the people who are doing the change making from the ground. They are the people who interact with the children, you know, from the very small squares, and the decisions they make, the way they teach the children, the little words they give to the children, they'll really make a big difference. And it goes on beyond to say, even as they teach, even in the classroom, the little words of encouragement that they give to these children will have an impact in terms of how this child will develop in terms of his self-awareness, believing in his abilities and going forward. And I really pray that one of the things is that we can do, even as a country, is we need to empower the teaching profession. Because one of the things that I've noticed with our country is most of the times when people get education, you know, even when you ask a child in class, it's not every time that you'll get students lifting up their hands saying, I want to be a teacher when I grow up. Normally it's like, you know, a second or a third option, you know. Maybe you did not get that grade that you want, and then you are like, teaching is not that bad at all. But then the teaching profession is a really noble profession. And we as a country, you as an individual, we need to applaud our teachers. And for the teachers to be able to deliver quality education, they not only need the TSC support, they need the support of their parents, you know, to back to pat them in the back and tell them they're really doing a good job. They need the support of everyone. We need to nobilize the profession of teaching so that they can be able to provide quality education. One of the reasons, perhaps in one way or another, they do not provide quality education is because most teachers are demotivated. Like, for example, I'll just give a good example of the places that we go to teach. You'll realize that in Mukuru kwa Njenga, they have public schools, and then you have these schools called low-income private schools. So low-income private schools are the schools, they don't really do well, but they're the schools that are there. And you find that most of the teachers who like teach there are teachers, one, like you realize that maybe he did Form 4. So like if you understand English, you are given an opportunity to teach English. If you understand maths, you're given an opportunity to teach maths, and so on and so forth. And you realize, and even the salary that they get, you realize sometimes you come to think of it, some teachers even earn between 6,000, you know, 3,000 to 6,000 a month. And even
Oh.
in this economy, you still expect that teacher to mark those assignments, to do all that work and provide quality education. That is something that really, even from a realistic point of view, is not really achievable.
Yeah.
So we need to mobilize the teaching profession, appreciate the teachers for the good work that they are doing, because I believe teaching is as much an important profession as medicine or as nursing, as whatever other profession.
Yeah. Input equals output. So what we invest in the teachers is what they will invest in the learners, and in return that will determine the quality of education that the learners will receive. So speaking about empowering teachers, I noticed one of the key things that you focus on as Teach for Kenya is leadership, empowering these teachers, allowing these fellows in your cohort to go and empower teachers in these specific schools. So besides motivating them, what are some of the key things that we should do to improve, you know, the quality of education that is being provided by the teachers? What kind of investments should we make to teachers? I want to take an example of just regular civil servants. I'll talk about HRs, people who are HRs for the government, because that's what I know. They usually go for short courses. At least once a year you take a short course that will last you maybe 3 months, take an exam just to improve your education, and it even ranks you, gives you a better rank in your job group. So how can we invest in teachers? How can we improve the teachers that we have so that they continue doing better? You know, it's easy to get comfortable. I am telling you this for sure as a teacher. It's easy to get comfortable because it's a matter of going to class, clocking in the morning. You know, if you're on duty, you go and maybe an hour earlier and leave an hour later. And it's easy to get comfortable because your salary is always there. You're going to class. No one is coming to monitor how you're teaching. So you can get comfortable. How do we invest in these teachers? What are some of the things that we can do for these teachers to become even better?
Yeah, I'll just re-echo the points that I've just said. One, we need to mobilize the teaching profession. We need to appreciate the teachers for the good job that they are doing. And by this is the parents, you need to appreciate the teachers, the community, the organizations. Even as young people, we need to take grabs, you know, for the teaching profession. I'd really love to see one day someone scores an A and, you know, they say, I want to become a P1 teacher. You know, that is mobilizing the teaching profession. Nonetheless, that said, another things that you can be able to do to be able to mobilize the teaching profession is continuous professional development. That is another thing. Like, we live in a world that, you know, today if you buy a smartphone, 6 months down the line, that smartphone is outdated.
2 weeks.
2 weeks a year. So it's really important for us to continuously learn. We need to invest in programs that can empower the teachers to learn. Like, for example, we currently have a very new syllabus, you know, for the young children, the CBC. So, and not many teachers are educated in this. I am so happy that the government has taken the initiative to empower the teachers. But then we need to be able to empower the teachers, you know, with continuous developmental learning talks, you know, have them go through learning so that they can be able to update and see how can we be able, perhaps, for example, to input technology in our class, you know, like the schools like you go to and you hear like a student has never even seen a laptop, for example, and you expect this teacher to teach this girl or this boy about IT skills, for example. So these are some of the things that I believe if we do to the teachers, we need to, one, motivate them. They'll provide quality education. Let's work in improving their salaries. We need to help them, support them in doing courses like continuous learning so that they can be able to gather skills here and there that can be able to help them teach as it is, you know, with current affairs. So that, for example, the other day, I don't know, there's no problem with like, for example, in my high school, I used to learn about, what was it? Fish in Japan or oil in Nigeria. Those were some of the things that we used to do in geography. But then, like, I don't really know about my country. Like, today I tried to see how do I apply this. But then I'm like, okay, maybe, you know, I understand why fish is mined a lot in Japan. Fish is in Japan. But then really, we need to also understand how can we be able to update our education system. Because sometimes you find the syllabus has been changed, but then the books that were recommended to us, you know, they are books that were, you know, like 5 years, 6 years down ago. These are some of the books that are given. So even the parents have a role to play to even provide the students with the responsibility and even support the teachers in the taking care of the children, because education, quality education, is not the role of just the teacher alone. It's
Yeah.
the role of the parent. It's the role of also the community members. The community members, because even as they will go to school, it's these community members that sometimes they engage in raping even the children. If the
Yeah.
community members come together, then we'll be able to achieve this quality education and mobilize the teaching profession.
Yeah. And that's why here in the Tai Show, we keep on insisting that we want to talk about technology, innovation, and education together. I wish education would borrow from technology and innovation. You know, I was telling you about a phone coming out 2 weeks later. I bought a phone recently, and after 2 weeks, I had there's a new one, and they just add a special name to. They've improved something very small from the previous model, and now there is a new one. So if we took that to education, we see a problem, we improve it and update it almost immediately. You know, right now phones come up, you know, I don't know this camera is doing what. It has 2 flashes, it has 3 cameras, it's an edge. There is so much that is happening in the world of technology that the education sector can borrow from. So let's talk about recruiting cohorts for Teach for Kenya. What is it? Do you know? There's a friend of mine who wanted to apply for, I think there was an announcement earlier this year.
Yes,
there was
yes,
an open application.
from around May.
Yeah. So my friend told me, I want to apply for this thing. It's called Teach for Kenya, blah, blah, blah. And he wanted assistance. So I asked him, what exactly do you want assistance in? Then he was like, oh man, this application is so long and it needs a lot of details. So take me through the process of getting fellows for your different cohorts in Teach for Kenya.
Okay, thank you. So what we do at Teach for Kenya, of course, we are looking for young people who are most passionately about education.
Yeah.
So we have like 8 skills that we test for. So among them is we are looking for passion, because 2 years is not a motivational talk. This is not going to be a talk that you'll be giving on Friday and then you're going home. So because you also be working in a very low income society, so we need people who are passionate about education, passionate about helping these children. Another skill that you're also looking for is critical thinking, because one of the things is even as we place you there, we know that we're going to face a lot of problems, but we're also challenging you to come up with solutions to those problems. Will you be a person who is able to think critically and come up with a solution and work and tell me, like, for example, these are some of the challenges I experienced. I realized that there is no clean water even for washing hands to prevent COVID. What did you do? We need a critical think. Another skill that you're looking for is an organization skill. We know we live in a society like you will have a lot of work on your hand. So we'll be testing for what are some of the organization skills that you have. Are you able to arrange yourself? Like, for example, you'll be in a class where like you have 80 students. How will you be able to organize yourself to be able to prepare a lesson plan, for example, and deliver on these things? Another skill that perhaps you're looking for is a leadership skill, because what we do at Teach for Kenya, we are not a recruiting agency for teachers. We are recruiting young leaders who will be able to be change makers, people who will be able to come up with solutions and say, these are some of the things that I observed and this is the solution that I believe if we spearhead on it, then we'll be able to do what? We'll be able to come up with a solution. So those are like the main things. And then you're also looking for academic qualifications. Your academic qualifications need to be good, because we also believe that we need to mobilize the teaching profession. So those are like the 5 key things that you're looking for. But then one should not outweigh the other. And then the other thing that you're also looking for is integrity. We're also looking to see that the people that we recruit are the people of integrity. Like, we entrust you, like, just the simple things. We hear of cases of rape, you hear of cases of demeanor and stuff like that. Will you be able to stand your ground when someone, for example, says, I bribe you or whatever? You know, you'll be able to become a person of integrity, because you will be the role model to these children. So those are like some of the skills that we assess for. So how the application process is it's a 3-staged process. So the first thing that we do is, of course, we receive the ESA applications. Through the ESA applications, we're able to critique and analyze. Are you able to score within the skills that you are looking for? So after that, we have a phone interview where we request you to respond to certain questions. And the last stage of the application process is we have a whole day assessment center where we get to interact with you. We give you challenges here and there so that you can be able to see, we can be able to assess all the skills in totality. So during those things, so they also have sessions of micro teaching. Doesn't mean that you have if you do not have a background in education, you cannot teach. but we're also
Yeah.
looking for things like confidence. We are looking also for things like, you know, a learning spirit. Are you a person who is able to learn, adaptability and adjust to the situations and so on and so forth? So after that, we do that. So that is like this recruitment process. And then after that, what we do is, remember that we recruit from different backgrounds of education.
Yeah.
So we normally take them, like currently our the fellows that we recruited are undergoing a 6-week summer institute where we empower them with skills like numeracy, science skills and literacy skills, so that they can be able to develop that and teach that in classroom. Beyond that, those who do not have a background in education, we enroll them for a postgraduate diploma in education, so that they can be able to be fit to be in class. So that are some of the things that we do.
Interesting.
I hope it's clear.
It is.
Look forward to receiving your application come next year. Yeah.
So, a biased question. Among how many cohorts have you had?
So we recruited, this is like our first cohort.
Yeah.
And for our first cohort, we currently have 21 fellows.
Okay.
Yes.
So in your 21 fellows, which fellow can you say has stood out, maybe in something that they did that you know, interested you so much, you as an individual? That's why I say
all the fellows, all the fellows have interested me. But then I can just say generally, I'm really happy with the fellows because of the diversity that we have.
Yeah.
Like even during this 6-week summer institute, we challenge them, you know, to think of dreams of what it is that they want to achieve. Like one of the things that as we're doing our summer institute, one of the things that we challenge them to do is, you know, dream. What are some of the solutions that you want to bring to the Kenyan education? Because after highlighting, like, you know, in Kenya, close to over 850,000 children lack access to primary education.
Yeah.
So like 8 out of 100 children who are in class 8 are not able to complete simple class 2 work. So we were able to present these problems to them. And we task them to imagine, you know, what are some of the solutions that you want to bring on board. And it was so amazing to see how people bring diversity in the classroom. Like for example, you'll realize like one of the fellows said like they will wish to focus on sports. For example, he's called Collins. He's a guy who is good with karate and kung fu, but then he's looking to see how can I use that skill, for example, to empower children to be more confident and stop getting into habits like how do you call it? Thieving, so that to prevent them from becoming thieves and so on and so forth. Like you see also another person, for example, the other guy came up with a solution of, apart from, you know, the sports, others want to see how they can be able to involve the parents to help them raise the children to quality education. And so the diversity in itself made us proud that indeed we had chosen a quality cohort, because they all bring different solutions to the table. Like the real estate, her name is Loretta. She wants to see how she can be able to improve the classroom level. We also have another lady, like she has a background in gender and she wants to see how can I be able to empower the girl child to be able to stand for her right. She wants to see how they can be able to introduce book clubs and run a fundraiser to help the children, especially in the low-income schools, to get textbooks and so on and so forth. And so the diversity in our fellows and the ability to think differently, I think it's one of the things that has stood out for me, in the thing that they all have different solutions and all these solutions are so achievable and they are ready to tackle them. So we're really excited and we're looking forward to an amazing 2 years with them.
Interesting. Fellows, if your name has not been mentioned, we don't have anything against you. We are happy with the work that you're doing and keep up. I hope TSC is watching. Wow. I mean, Africa is rising. So the SDGs were supposed to be achieved by year 2030. You know, I just want to laugh. But anyway, it took a few years for Facebook to rise. How far are we to attaining quality education? What are some of the things that we are seeing that are challenges in learners getting quality education? Of course, we've mentioned some of those. We've talked about teachers, we've talked about classrooms, we've talked about social stratification. What are the main things that you're seeing as Teach for Kenya that are making Kenya not achieve, that will maybe make it not achieve quality education by year 2030?
So just to be positive, I think we're almost doing well.
Yeah.
We are on the right track. According to the UNICEF report, the sub-Saharan region, especially countries in Kenya, have really increased the rate of absorption of children, especially in primary and secondary school.
Yeah.
We are doing well. The introduction of free education also helped to improve the attendance of children joining the education. So we really did well on that. But then it's still not yet over. There's still a lot of things that we need to do to be able to realize the dream of quality education.
Yeah.
Like I believe even the COVID gap has really widened the gap slightly, but there's still a lot of things that we need to do to be able to fight this. And one of the things that I think we need to do as a country is we need to understand that this is a problem of we. Not a problem of teachers, not a problem of other people,
Absolutely.
but this is a problem of us. That only when we come together can we be able to realize the quality education that we want in 2030. I believe even in the 10 years that is remaining, when we come together, then we will be able to do. And in this is asking yourself, me as an individual, what is it that I need to do to contribute? Because I believe there is always something you can do. Like the children really need motivation. Like for example, beyond going back to your high school, you as a young graduate, before you get a job, can you just spend even an hour to go to that school and encourage that child and tell them, you know what? Your dreams are valid, for example.
Yeah.
Encourage them and tell them, you know what? I was in this school, but here is where I am. You know, that is something that we can do. Even as community members, we need to be able to support the education system. Like, for example, you know, when you work, for example, if it's the community members, you need to ask ourselves, what is it, one thing that I need to do to be able to have a quality education, for example, to help the child have a quality education. And this goes beyond quality educations. Need a community that one is safe. When the child goes to school, does the child feel safe? And it feels safe when the community members are in support of the children doing what? Getting service, because it is these community members who will employ the child at a very minimal fee, preventing them from going to school. It can be an engineer. Can you take a task and say, recently, I think it was this year, we had a building collapsing in Kawangware because of maybe an engineer did not focus on providing quality structures for that school. So engineers at hand, what is that one thing that you can say? Can you say I specialize in helping schools building structures that are more stable? It can be a health officer, for example, me as a nurse or you as a doctor. What is it that you want to do? Can you take time off your schedule and say, I will empower the children on how they can be able to maintain hygiene, for example? So we all have something to play. And I believe the only one thing that if we do, we can be able to realize the SDG goal number 4, especially in our country, of enabling every child, regardless of where they come from, their background, their gender, their race, to realize quality education, is when we tackle the problem of education inequity as a we problem, rather than a teacher's problem, a government's problem, or somebody else's problem, because we all have a role to play.
Exactly. Everyone has a responsibility. Viewer, what is 1 times 0? And 1 times 0.1? It's 0.1, but there's a significant difference in those different answers. So do the little that you can. If everyone does a little, little is much. So ultimately, we'll get there. So what is the future? What are we expecting from Teach for Kenya in the next, few years? Are we expecting any partnerships with the government, with TSC? Because as it looks like, you've taken design thinking on another level. You've taken ideation on another level. So what are we expecting from Teach for Kenya in the upcoming years?
So at Teach for Kenya, one of the things is we believe in not inventing the wheel, but working also on the wheels that are already invented and exist. And we have also understood that the challenge is not a high problem. It's not something that we can solve alone. And so we are looking to partner with as many organizations as possible to see how we can be able to enhance education equality, especially in our country. Like, for example, we were recruiting recent graduates, isn't it? Like, even when you go to school, you realize that those children, for example, they need food to be in class. So we are looking to reach out to organizations that can be able to help us get those children have even if it's just the one meal that they get in a day. We realize that for the child to be able to do well, for example, they will need textbooks, for example.
Yeah.
We are looking to reach out to organizations like Textbook Center to help us provide textbooks. We are looking to make our program a countrywide movement. Currently, because of our funds, we are only able to recruit 21 fellows, for example. We are hoping to make this a national movement. And why are we hoping to making this a national movement? The reason why we believe this is so is because if you look at countries like Ghana or Nigeria, you realize that it is mandatory for every youth to give a 1 year or 2 year service in their country.
Yeah.
But here we hope to make Teach for Kenya the #1 option that young people can look up and say, I want to give back to my country. And so we're looking to recruit, even one day when we'll be able to recruit 80 perhaps. Next year we're hoping to recruit 40, and then we grow to 80. But when we get funding, we're even looking to recruit 1,000, 10,000 youths who are passionate about education. The moment we come together, then nothing will be able to stop us. So that is the future that we're looking to forward to do. In the short 2 years, we are hoping to be able to effect change in the small classrooms that we'll be ministering in. But moving forward, after the 2 years, the fellows undergoing the program, we are looking to see that they will be empowered to even realize their dreams even in much more grand scales. That they'll be able to come with solutions that will make the story of education inequity a thing of the past.
Passion right there. We've been talking about quality education. It's a conversation that we should continually have. Let's continue talking about it. You can leave your comments. How do you think education can be improved? Give us your thoughts. We'd like to read them, and other people would like to see those thoughts. So we have been talking to Brian Bosire, the recruiting manager of Teach for Kenya. Thank you for coming on set.
Thank you so much for having us.
We look forward to having more of these conversations so that, you know, we can teach each other how to be partakers of improving this country. I have been your host, Devian Kwamboka. I'll see you next Friday, same time, different topics. See you then.
Bye.
Are you a lecturer? Are you a tutor? Are you an instructor? Do you wish to make learning efficient and effective? You can now reach out to your learners online using technology. Introducing Bafunde. Bafunde supports trainers and educators in organizations, universities and colleges to prepare and deliver digital content to boost interactions and learning. Visit our website at bafunde.com and register now. Bafunde, enhancing learning.